Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Creator Hangout. My name is Julio Terra. I am an outreach lead for design and technology here at Kickstarter. And today we have an awesome guest, John Van Den Nieuwenhuizen. And I'm sorry, John, if I butchered your last name. I'll let you correct me there. But
that's perfect.
John is an industrial designer and the creator of two really awesome, successful projects on Kickstarter, Hidden Radio and Hidden Radio 2. So today, like all the Creator Hangouts, this is a live conversation, which means that you have a chance to submit questions. You can submit questions through Google+, Facebook, or you can tweet at us by tweeting at Kickstarter Tips. So let's just dive right in. I thought what would be interesting is just to start by talking a little bit about what you were doing before you started Hidden Radio. I know you have a partner in this venture. So if you could talk a little bit about that and just kind of how you guys got inspired to really build out this product.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Sydney, Australia, and I left there straight out of college, moved to Italy, and that's where I met my business partner, Vitor Santa Maria. We both were working at Motorola at the time. And after that, I moved to the US, worked for a number of other technology companies, but we still, like a lot of people working in corporations, we still had little side projects with the dream of building them into a business. And we kept working. I was in the US, he was in Milan. We kept working on stuff, and then we came up with this idea for a little Bluetooth speaker, which would go on to become the Hidden Radio. And one of the funny things was, like, a very big Japanese company pitched and wanted to buy the product, and it was a huge thing for us. We were like so excited. We were, this could be the way that we can quit our day jobs. And it turned out that deal didn't go through for a number of reasons. It was actually around the time of the tsunami, and there was a lot of problems in Japan. So we were naturally disappointed. And but when one door closes, another opens. And around that time, my friend Scott Wilson was doing the little Lunatic Nano watch on Kickstarter, doing incredibly well. And he was like, "Oh, you should put the Hidden Radio on there." And it's like, well, it's funny you say that. We were planning at the same time, so it was really a perfect storm. The Japanese deal didn't happen, but then Kickstarter came along. We grabbed the product. We grabbed a few of our friends as actors. I was the director behind the DSLR. We shot it, Vitor cut it together, and we put it on Kickstarter, and it did really well. So that gave us the chance to, quit our jobs and do this full time.
Awesome. And I mean, now you've already run two successful campaigns. From these two campaigns, just at a high level, like, what would you say are the, two big, if you had to say, like, the two biggest tips, the two first things that come to mind for an aspiring creator, who's considering doing Kickstarter? What would be, your mentoring that you would give to them, to help them think through that?
Yeah, I think it's naturally, and these are probably annoyingly obvious tips, but the product obviously needs to be really compelling. Something that you couldn't find on a store shelf, that you could only find on Kickstarter. That's a great way to make sure that you get on blogs. If it's a really catchy image, the bloggers will love to put it on there because then more people will visit their blog. So obviously the product needs to be great. And then the second thing is the video. And I think a lot of people, try to think and ruminate on how to do a great video. And I think really speaking from the heart and being authentic is the best way to do a good video. It's like people are really great at, sniffing out if something's a little bit off. And I think if you just speak naturally, people will really resonate.
And kind of talking a little bit about the video, because the video is definitely something we hear a lot about.
Yeah.
But talking about that whole process of preparing for campaigns. I mean, you've having gone through two campaigns now, do you have kind of a process that you guys use for preparing campaigns? Like, what are the things that you're thinking about? Like, how far in advance do you start planning a campaign for your products? Yeah,
I think whenever we're starting a new product, it's definitely like, how will this resonate with our audience? And the wonderful thing about doing a project on Kickstarter, especially if you've already done one, is you have probably the best market research possible. You have all these backers who are highly motivated and willing to give you incredible feedback. So we often talk to them, find out what they like or don't like about what we're doing. And then, obviously these things kind of fill out, what we think is going to make a successful product. And I think one of the tricky things is when you're, like us, we're developing into a business, is, the thing that might work on a store shelf may not necessarily work on Kickstarter, and vice versa. So I think you really need to find that fine line. And I think the goal is doing something so eye-catching that you'll then influence the store shelf afterwards. But we were saying, some of the most successful products at Best Buy are big commodity products that people wouldn't care about on Kickstarter, whereas Kickstarter, I think the products really need to stand out and be something that people have never seen before.
Yeah, and in terms of thinking again, drilling down to different parts of that planning process, one of the questions that we often get from creators is, how do I set my funding goal? When you guys are doing a new project and you guys are thinking about funding goal, do you guys have a process? Is it something that your funding goal is always really meant to cover production costs? Do you guys already have kind of a set up business where you have money, so it's like the campaign really becomes a marketing effort? How do you think through how to set that goal?
Yeah, that's a very difficult part, but I think you need to set it at the absolute bare minimum of what you need. I think if you're going on the platform, you're also willing to put your own money into it or do what you need to do to take it over the line. So we look at the tooling that we need, we look at the software engineering, we look at the these other aspects, and we set that as a bare minimum of like, this is what we need to cover it. And I think once you do get into production, those costs will always go up. So then once you set the bare minimum, be willing to pad that, because there will be so many other costs that you just didn't foresee. And even us, doing our second project, there was costs that just came out that we didn't foresee. So it's very important to put a little bit extra in there, because the more money you raise, it's better for the overall backer, because they're going to get a better product.
And in terms of talking about this figuring out budgets and things like that, I know that a lot of the work required to figure out budget involves having prototypes and really trying to figure out as many of the problems that you might encounter, both with the product but also with the manufacturing beforehand.
Yep.
How do you guys feel in terms of like, how far do you take your prototypes before you run a campaign? I mean, of course, we have Kickstarter has its own requirements of having a prototype, but that requirement ends up being pretty loose. And for you guys, like how close to finished is a prototype before you launch a product?
We bring it very close, like right up to tooling, and tooling is always the biggest barrier to getting to production, because a set of tools for a product can go in excess of $100,000. So that's always our biggest barrier. So we do as much as we can up to that point, and then we have to say, all right, now we need to go to pitch it to the crowd and get that financing for that tooling, and then run through the manufacturing process. And that's the most inhibitive part of physical manufacturing.
Got it. Other parts of that planning process before you run a campaign, what have you guys done that has worked in terms of gearing up from an outreach perspective, in terms of getting press interested or bloggers interested in what you're doing? Like, what have you done that you feel has worked, and what have you done that you feel hasn't worked that you can share?
Yeah, I think when we first started on the first product, it was, I don't want to say easy to get press, but it was easier than what it is today. I think Kickstarter was very new back then. I think now, because of the absolute popularity, it's always going to be harder. And I think the best way to get press now is really trying to establish good relationships with the journalists and really come off as authentic. Like, even if you go to a network mixer, they're pretty. Journalists will know if you're pitching them or not. So I think it's really important to be authentic. Start to build up those relationships as many months in advance as you can. And then when you do have the product and you want to pitch it to them, just send it out to them, say, hey, what do you think? And, don't be like, well, please write, come on. You really be like, do you think it's cool? And ask for their opinion. And, if they want to write on it, they'll write on it. So it's, I think that's the hardest thing to accept as a backer. You're just like, please write, please. But I think you just have to be cool, be a little bit zen with it, and they'll usually come up. And, there's so many cool products that, it's also in their interest to write on it, because, it's great for their blog.
Awesome. No, this is great. And I just wanted to remind anybody who's listening in that you can submit questions via, Google Plus, Facebook, or Twitter by tweeting us at Kickstarter Tips. Moving on in terms of other kind of things that you plan before you go and actually launch a project. I know that we often talk to creators about the importance of updates and how that's a really important way for you to keep your backers engaged. I want to talk about updates in a few different ways. I mean, first off, though, I just want to get a sense, what type of planning do you guys do around updates? Do you guys, create a list and even develop updates before you launch a campaign, or do you kind of just do those on the fly?
We have a bunch of options, because I think, one of the biggest things is backers like to feel engaged in the project, and they want to feel that they're influencing the outcome. I think one of the cool things that they're getting in early before manufacturers, they can really influence that outcome. So we kind of develop a bunch of options. Maybe there were things that we thought the product would need, but then we threw it out. So we think about those, and then we talk to the crowd, and they're like, oh, it'd be really cool if the product had this. And we're like, well, we're looking at that. Yeah, it's actually, now you say that, it's actually possible that we add that. And that was one of the cases on the Hidden Radio too. There was a particular codec called aptX that people were wanting it in the product. We didn't put it in there originally, and we're like, okay, yeah, let's put it in there. So those things we'll put in there as we go through the project and kind of help to spike interest. But we don't particularly have them all written out, because so much of it, you're reacting to what people are thinking about the project. So we try to really engage what people are thinking and try to answer their questions as best as possible.
And were there any kind of type of updates that you found with your community tended to resonate better? I mean, I know that creators sometimes will do updates that kind of tell people about the production process, or kind of about the team, about the product itself. Is there anything that you found seemed to work?
Yeah, I think some of them we put in, and this is one of the things, is the updates, like, they look like they don't take that much work, but they actually take a lot of work to do a good update, and we put a lot of work into them. And for example, the manufacturing update, we try to, like, things that we don't think are that interesting, we're slugging away, getting things resolved, getting quality right, and we try to take as many photos as possible. And when we do put all that stuff up, like, this is the way we control the quality on this type of paint finish, blah, 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 people just really get so much into that. And that's one of the cool things about the process is, a lot of people who back a project, maybe they haven't done a project, but they're hoping to do what you've done. So getting that learning, people really love it. And I think, I think naturally doing backing a Kickstarter project, you're wanting to get a great product, but two, you're very interested in the process, and I think that's an exciting part of following a project.
Absolutely, and I mean, you mentioned about people providing feedback, and how that's a really a part of the process that people really love to engage in with a creator, and to that extent, in your projects, did you actually explicitly elicit that type of feedback? Was that type of feedback just things that kind of were provided and caught you by surprise? How do you actively participate in that desire for feedback, or not? I mean,
yeah, we have some things that are kind of controlled feedback. Like, we had a color option where we said, all right, we got 10 colors, we can do 2 or 3. What do you guys think? And it's a great way to let people be engaged, and it's something we can control. There is some things that people really want that it would potentially add a lot of time to the project. So that's the hard part, of saying, well, no, we can't, that's not possible. And that's always, tricky, but you're making the right decision on behalf of the audience. But it's also, it's also the power of the system. It's, you can really see in real time what people think it needs and doesn't need. And it's, it's like, imagine Apple going through the process and having, a year out from launch, they have thousands of beta guys, willing to give an opinion. It's, it's absolute gold.
Yeah. And in terms of staying on updates for a little bit longer, and the, like, engagement of your backers, how does it change the way you look at updates when your product is funding to the post-funding phase of your project, like frequency and things like that, and the topics that you might cover?
Yeah, I think I think you need to be very careful, like especially when you're going through the funding stage, is not to bombard people with too many updates. Like I think the biggest thing is every update, no matter the frequency or when you send them out, there needs to be valuable information in there. You know, just sending one with, hey, we just posted on Facebook, you know, it's not very interesting. But if you post one even during the campaign, like, hey, this is how we file a patent, you know, people love to see that stuff. And generally, while the campaign is running, we'll be posting more updates because there's a lot of questions to be answered, and a lot of people ask a similar question, maybe they couldn't find the answer. So you might do maybe one a week during the funding period, and then after that, you know, kind of every few weeks as you've got, you know, really good information.
Awesome. And in terms of you know, now that you've run multiple campaigns, what have you found has worked for you to try to engage your backers across campaign? And have you seen success in kind of being able to carry backers over from one campaign to the next one?
Yeah, that's been incredible, and we didn't expect it. You know, from the first one, you know, we thought, oh, it'd be cool if people come and, you know, back the second one, you know, and we got to think about over 30% of backers on the first product came and backed the second product, which is, you know, a pretty big return rate. And what we found was, you know, we tried to do a soft launch late on a Saturday night so that we could have time to react, and luckily we didn't get that time. You know, we did, I think, about 100,000 in, you know, a few hours, which really caught us by surprise, because, you know, when we did the first project, we just did like you know, $1,000 the first day or something, and this was totally polar opposite. So yeah, it was pretty amazing to see that.
And it's interesting. I mean, just kind of hearing about how different the funding curve were for your two projects. How was the emotional experience of running the projects?
Yeah, that's a roller coaster for sure. You know, I think it's you're very much in reactive mode, and I think it pays to be very you know, considered in what you're writing, what you're doing. You know, I think it can really kind of take over, you know, because it runs 24 hours, and you know, I think it's very important to be very focused, compartmentalize different parts of the project. Like, you know, there's so many questions to answer, and it's very difficult to give these, say, to a customer service person, because so many of them are technical and need to be answered by the creators. So we have to, you know, block out, you know, 6-7 hours a day to answer private messages and then check out the comments and all that stuff. So I think it's really about compartmentalizing the different parts of the project. But I think the biggest thing that we've found is, you know, those 30 or 60 days, however long you put it on Kickstarter, it's an extremely full-time job, and, you know, I think you can't underestimate how much work the campaign is. It is a hell of a lot of work, but you know, it's very rewarding, and it really is one of those things, you get as much out as what you put in.
And you know, I know that you and Vitor are the two founders that you know, brought Hidden Radio to life. Do you guys now still are you two the only people who are in the company? Do you guys have now a larger, you know, staff or other people who are kind of you know, helping provide support when you run projects? Like, what's your strategy from that perspective now?
Yeah, we do have people that we bring in and out, depending, like, you know, like same with engineering, we have engineers that come in and out depending on load. We're still a very lean company. You know, so much of it is still Vitor and myself, and you know, it's one of the tricky things is, like, I think that's what we're learning, is how to delegate better. But I think it's still, you know, it's so invaluable to be getting that real-time information that there's a lot of things we want to be on top of. And you know, I think if you look at, you know, big electronics manufacturers, there's someone for like every little job, the label, the website, and, you know, we're kind of doing it all, which is, you know, pretty exhilarating, but it's also a lot of work. But I think it's also, you know, it's kind of the new model. It's like, I don't think there was ever a time when, you know, a few guys could build a technology company, and now it's kind of starting to become possible.
And let me ask you, what is the reason, you know, that the main reason that you guys, you know, have decided now to you know, use the platform multiple times, you know, to release new products? What are the main benefits that you find, you know, being able to come to Kickstarter to launch a product?
Yeah, I think, you know, the first thing is, you know, it's a great source of funding, and it, when you do launch it and our manufacturer sees, wow, you've already got 5,000 plus orders for the product, they have much more of a desire to work, very hard on the product. That's a great form of, inspiration for them. When I've worked at technology companies, you're working off the hope that the product will do well, and even the manufacturer, sometimes they can lose confidence in a product, because it doesn't have any sales yet. That all comes after the launch, and what's incredibly invaluable is having that validation before, you go to the manufacturer, and as you go through the process. I think that's very key.
Awesome. I did notice when I was, looking into the projects and a little bit into your profile before the call that you guys have backed a really large number of projects. I think you guys backed around 170 odd projects. How has that, I think, being a participant in the community from a backer perspective helped inform the way you create projects as a creator?
Yeah, I think kind of the backing, it's not so much of a strategic thing. Like sometimes we just have people asking for help on PR, and could you check out our project? So we'll kind of support it support the project, because it's cool. There's also a lot of cool stuff that we've just wanted to support. It has helped, for some projects we've done cross backing, as the project has been going. If we're running in parallel, we'll often give a shout out about the project. But that's also it's got to be done authentically. I think it's got to be something that resonates with your audience. Like I think when we did our one, I think the company Native Union, they had a really cool iPhone adapter, battery charger. It was like really cool, and that was perfect for our audience because they're big iPhone guys.
Yep, awesome. I wanted to talk a little bit now about the manufacturing and production part of things. I know that that's something that creators who are doing first-time hardware projects often struggle with, because there is a lot of complexity in that area. And you guys now, one, you guys had experience before already working in companies doing this type of work, but you've also now have 2 products under your belt. What are some of the main learnings that you and main tips that you have for somebody coming into this, never having produced something by themselves before?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting to know that manufacturer really well. I think if you kind of start a project and you don't already have that manufacturer's buy-in, I think that's not the way to go. I think you want to really have that very strong relationship, already be working with them, have them working, the production line of how to set things up, and throughout that process you can understand, the trustworthiness, whether you two can work together, because the ultimate basis of your success is, in some ways it's not as much you, it's really about them, doing a quality product. So that is the key, and finding the right partner, from a trust perspective. You can have all the contracts in the world, but it's really finding someone who's invested in you as well. And for example, our company, our factory that we work with, they produce products in the millions of units, and they're really commodity products. But when they see our product, ours is the one that they use to sell their company and their capabilities to other customers, because it's the most interesting. So I think really showing them that this could be something very good for them as well as for us, I think is key.
And the process for you guys to actually find this partner, can you just talk a little bit about that? I mean, is this were you guys how long was that process to even identify this partner, or were you just lucky and kind of right away were able to connect with the right company?
No, it was a very long process. We used kind of our network through working for technology companies, and we just kind of called up really good engineers we'd worked with, and we said, do you know any good companies to work with? We looked at our own resources, and we traveled all around the world really looking for the right partner. And in the end, we found the right one, and the reason we went with them was, it was trust. It was also looking at what products they'd done before and looking at how much they're willing to invest in us, because the first production run is not really where the factory is going to make their money. They're going to make their money by doing multiple runs. So you want to have something that's going to be a multi-year relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And talking about that, like this whole notion of it's not just about your first run. I mean, you guys were using our platform as a way to launch different products within your business. How do the Kickstarter projects help you with your bigger business, and have you found kind of special ways or special tactics that you use to help that Kickstarter project really set you up for this kind of longer term business success?
Yeah, I think, really, Kickstarter is pretty much a key to our business because, we're really funded by the community, and it allows us to really move forward and go through the final manufacturing with the community. We're now moving into retail and other, forms of sales. And, the Kickstarter community is really validation that the product is successful and it will sell. And so I think, having that validation, you don't have to go and say, well, we have a, market research that says people are buying. It's like we have real sales before the products ship that people are buying.
And what are the sales channels that you guys you have been using for your products after Kickstarter? Is it mostly direct sales? Do you guys actually have any partnerships with, even small retailers?
Yeah, we use obviously direct sales is very good because you can control everything. We also work with a number of online retailers, like there's Urban Daddy, are great, Fab.com, Gilt. There's a lot of those guys that we work with who, and they also, selling on them, it also gives you a lot more coverage, and people will sometimes see it there and then come back and look at it later. And then we work with a lot of kind of more boutique design stores. We haven't gone the route, at least yet, of like Best Buy and Target because that's a massive investment, incredibly big, and if you don't do it right, it could be bad for your business. So we've very much held off on those big box retailers for now, and really tried to keep it niche.
Great. And what are your guys future plans at the moment for Hidden?
Yeah, so we've got other projects in the works that we're looking to launch soon, and really kind of continue what we're doing. I think a big motivation for launching the business was not to build a 20,000 person company. It was kind of to build products that we'd love to own and stuff we'd love to do. We worked for big corporations and we're very thankful for it, but we're always wanting to do other stuff. Don't always do our own ideas, and this is the way to do it.
Awesome. And I mean, as you kind of look at the two projects that you've run, is there anything, for example, that you could point out that you did it like this in the first project and that you did it differently in the second project, and kind of just kind of any very concrete learnings or things like that you can share?
Yeah, I think on the first one we were very much like willing to make special adjustments for different backers. I think when you get into fulfillment, that's very tricky because you're fulfilling so many products. So it's important to keep things simple, and the fulfillment process is the biggest effort. So it's very important to have an automated process that's simple and you can roll out very quickly, because that's going to be best for all the backers because they're going to get their product quickly.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've definitely heard the difficulty associated with fulfillment for many creators across the board, and I think that kind of goes right into the question of rewards. I mean, in general, what has been your guys' thinking as far as rewards for your campaigns? Do you guys just like to keep things simple? What is the kind of the overriding guiding principle that you guys use when you guys are thinking about rewards for your projects?
Yeah, we do try to keep it simple. Like we kind of have a two-tier approach. We have like the main product that is the reason why we're there, and then we also try to have something a little more special that maybe you can only get on Kickstarter. And I think that kind of two-tier approach is the way to go. It's like you have something that's a little bit desirable that won't be available afterwards, so that it also motivates people to back the project.
Awesome. And I know we only have have 1 minute left, so if anyone has any questions, again, this is your last chance to submit it. Google+, Facebook, or Kickstarter tips on Twitter. And I think for me, John, one of the things that it has been really awesome to see the two projects that you guys have brought to life, and see how even looking at those projects, seeing how they've evolved. Even the way you guys tell your story, and so the last thing I want to ask is that, like, when you think about telling a story now, what are the core components of the story that you guys find are really important to you beyond just like what the product does?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have the most trouble with is keeping the timing down on the video. It's very easy to go over the limit, but there's also a lot to tell, and so we try to really grab people's attention early. Even if they don't watch the whole video, they get an idea very early what the product is about, and then we try to extend longer and really give people a lot of info, because even with some of our ones that are over 5 minutes, people watch the whole thing and they're very interested in all the little details. So I think, in terms of like the overall length, I think it's very good if you can keep it at 2 minutes. That's the ideal. But if you do go longer, there are people that enjoy watching a 45-minute video.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for the time we have today. Cool. John, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome to get a chance to hear from you, your tips and your learnings and experience. And thank you everybody out there for joining us too. And I hope you'll join us next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.